Can I read some stats to you from yesterday's game? Forget the result, you don't know the result. So Celtic had 53% possession, Rangers had 47 at Parkhead. That's not bad for an away team. Celtic had 14 shots, Rangers had 13 shots. Celtic had 4 on target, Rangers had 4 on target. Celtic had 5 off target, we had 5 off target. Does that sound like a game that's been one-sided? Those stats are not suggesting that they are turning up and mullering Rangers at Parkhead.
What's your take on it?
I'm just listening to Graeme reel out stats.
These are facts.
But you would never use stats, Graeme, unless you want to advance an argument.
Graeme, maybe the sensible thinking was Celtic will overcome Rangers at Celtic Park again, as they have been doing on a regular basis when the two met at Celtic yesterday, and they did just that. They powered past Rangers by 3-0 and now go 5 points clear of their Glasgow rivals. Post-match, Philippe Clement and Brendan Rodgers had differing emotions, as you might expect.
Don't forget what happened last week. So it was the best result in around 4 years for the club. So it's not that black and white. It's grey. Okay, it's maybe more dark grey today, and that's normal. For me also, I don't want to lose with 3-0. Nobody wants to lose that way. But we need to take the right conclusions out of that.
Our pressing has been really, really good, and for a lot of the game it was today. You've seen that hunger and that ability to double up around players. So I was really, really pleased with that. But there's other aspects that we will analyse when we look back on the game where we can improve. But I think you see the level that the players are at and the mentality that they're at. We're in a really good place, but it's so early in the season, and there's a lot more growth to come.
5-0 firm matches for Philippe Clement in all competition, Graeme. 4 losses and 1 draw. So at the moment, it's all Celtic, and it doesn't look like changing anytime soon.
No, they have the better players, they have the better strikers, and I think that's if you're going to win football matches, you have to put the ball in the back of the net. And right now, and I said this last year, that they have better strikers than what we have.
But it's more than that, isn't it?
Is it? Can I read some stats to you from yesterday's game? So forget the result, you don't know the result. You don't know the result. So Celtic had 53% possession, Rangers had 47 at Parkhead. That's not bad for an away team. Celtic had 14 shots, Rangers had 13 shots. Celtic had 4 on target, Rangers had 4 on target. Celtic had 5 off target, we had 5 off target. Does that sound like a game that's been one-sided to you? There's no doubt about it, there is a gap. That gap for me, looking at it, is Celtic have better strikers. Those stats are not suggesting that they are absolutely turning up and mullering Rangers at Parkhead. But there is a gap. They have opened a gap in them.
Did you watch the Man United versus Liverpool game where the stats were Man United had 8 shots and Liverpool had 11? They both had 3 shots on target, and Man United had 53% possession. You watch those stats, and those stats don't suit your argument.
We finished last year second behind Celtic. At the end of the season, they spent 28 million. We spent 14 million, and although they brought a lot of money in. So we're chasing them, but we're spending half the amount of money in the summer months. So there is a gap. Rangers are not in a healthy financial situation right now. Celtic are in a far better financial situation, what allows them to go out and cherry pick players, like they got good money for that O'Reilly, take a chance on someone, where Rangers are buying under pressure that everyone they buy has to come in and do a job right now, and that's a difficult situation to be in.
What's your take on it?
I'm just listening to Graeme reel out stats.
Well, they're not my stats. These are facts.
But you would never use stats, Graeme, unless you want to advance an argument. So I've just given you the stats of Man United. And the actual outcome of the game was that we've just discussed the fact that Liverpool were in a different zip code to Manchester United. Mm-hmm. And I would suggest that the same conclusion, despite you wanting to use the stats to advance an argument,
I watched the game yesterday, and Rangers didn't play well yesterday. When they did carry a threat, they didn't have the people to finish it off. There is a gap that exists. But how many players would make that gap less? How many would make that change the other way in Rangers' favour? It's not a lot. It's 3 or 4 players and 50 million quid that Rangers don't have right now.
The debate regularly rages with you, and you get all prickly about it, and then you start flinging around superlatives about people not being football people, when we've had this debate about the gap between the two clubs. And we've had this fierce debate, and you've said absolutely not, absolutely not, absolutely not.
I'm accepting there's a gap. I said it last year, they have better strikers.
Vast gap.
Well, in your opinion?
Or in the results opinion?
Yeah,
if you're in the results business and you don't ever beat this side, there's a vast gap, isn't there?
Yeah, there's an enormous... Listen.
Oh, there is now. Okay.
No, it's not an enormous gap. There's a gap. Okay. But in your opinion, it's not. In your opinion, you think it's an enormous one. I don't. And that's trying to watch that game yesterday objectively. I didn't see it a one-sided affair. They were clinical in their finishes. They finished their goals well. There's a couple of goals. The third goal is a deflection that our goalkeeper couldn't get to. The second one the first one was avoidable. The second one was avoidable. I think the big goalkeeper got his positional sense wrong. That would normally be a food and drink safe for him. But there's no doubt about it. Celtic deserved to win yesterday. 3 goals,
Graeme,
yes, they finished
Liverpool
better.
fans will tell you this Monday morning. There's only one stat in town. We beat United 3-0. There's only one stat in town from Celtic Park. Celtic won 3-0.
Yeah, I'm accepting that. And they deserve to win.
That's the only and all-important stat.
They deserve to win. I started by saying goals are the most important thing in football matches. They change the games.
So other stats don't really matter, do they?
No, goals are the ones that matter.
So why did you reel off the stats you reeled off?
I'm not watching the game yesterday and sitting there feeling we're getting absolutely tonked here. I didn't feel that. Maybe that's because I'm a blue nose, but I didn't see Celtic wave after wave of attack. Our goalkeeper having to make lots and lots of saves. I didn't see that yesterday.
But before you told us there's not much between the two.
Well, what is much?
Are you telling us there is a gap between Celtic and Rangers?
But it's not that big a gap.
There is a gap between Celtic and Rangers. But now you're saying there is a gap.
Let me finish. There's a gap. I think I accepted that last year when we had this conversation. But I don't see it with an enormous gap. I've been in Glasgow. I've worked here for 5 years. I know how it works. You lose an Old Firm game, everything is wrong. Everything is wrong. And I would plead with the Rangers supporters right now that turned up Ibrox and were critical of their team and the manager to take a deep breath and calm down, because that only benefits one side, and that only benefits Celtic. Get behind your manager now and get behind your football club.
But how do they do that? Rangers have forgotten how to win at Celtic Park.
When you see a big gap,
5 successive home league wins at Celtic Park now in this fixture.
When you say a big gap, you're talking 3 players, maybe 4 players. But Rangers don't have the finances to go out, and the manager is operating with one hand tied behind his back. He can't go out and buy the kind of players that can make that jump.
So because of that, you can only see the gap widening.
Well, I don't have a crystal ball.
And that's a question, it's not a statement. Can you only see the gap widening?
If you go back to when Celtic did 9 in a row, everyone, maybe the media wasn't so intrusive and fierce then. Maybe they wouldn't have been saying it can never be. Rangers are finished. They can never challenge again. And then when Rangers did 9 in a row, would the Celtic supporters have been saying, "Oh, we can never challenge again"? It's football. You're from Glasgow. You know how it works there. Nothing is forever. That will turn. It's just hopefully, if you're a Rangers supporter like I am, it's sooner rather than later. It's football.
Do you concede that Rangers' financial situation though is going to make life pretty darn difficult?
Yeah, very difficult, but not impossible.
To get to the level where Celtic have got themselves.
Very difficult, but not impossible. Who knows what's around the corner for Rangers?
Do you think this has become like almost the most predictable fixture you could imagine, Simon? Did you think before the game yesterday? You're looking at a 3-0, and you're looking at 3-4-0, and it's going to be Celtic.
There's nothing in Rangers' form this season, from drawing 0-0 with Dundee at the beginning of the season to losing to Dynamo Kiev, who are no powerhouse in European football and don't have a particularly bigger turnover than Rangers. Hearts, sorry, yeah. So you look at Rangers and you go, you've drawn with Hearts at the beginning of the season. You've got knocked out of the Europa League out of the Champions League qualification by Dynamo Kiev, who don't have a bigger turnover than Rangers. They have the same sort of level of turnover. And you think to yourself, well, if you can't land a glove domestically on Celtic, because we have this debate frequently about whether Rangers and Celtic can be considered to be close to one another. If you never beat your opposition, never beat them, then you have to say that the gap is significant. Now, the argument then is what do you do to try and achieve things? You try and get into the Champions League. So you draw a team like Dynamo Kiev that you get a result with away from home. You bring them back to Ibrox or to Hampden in this instance, and you get knocked out of the Champions League. So any opportunities that you have to be able to bridge the gap economically are taken away by performances on the field. And that has to come down to the group of players and the manager that you've got to be able to overcome some of these things. Because I don't think Celtic are wonderful. I don't think they're great. I don't think this is the greatest Celtic side we've ever seen. And I think that this just shows you where Rangers are. I mean, Clement, to me, This time, well, he wasn't here this time last year. I think everybody's right about Michael Beale. I don't know why they would have employed Michael Beale. I don't know what the thinking behind that was, because Michael Beale didn't bring any intellectual capital into Rangers. The scale of the job was far too big for him, and the scale of the Sunderland job was far too big for him. So, Christ on a bike, so would Rangers be. Yet they let themselves sit there for a year and waste time. That's down to the ownership. That's down to the recruitment policies they've got there. Clement, to me, looks like he's got the chops, but you've got to give the fella some tools. And if
this goes back beyond Michael Beale as well. You know, Steven Gerrard won one league. Steven Gerrard was there 3 years.
But he did win a league.
He was there 3 years. You can win 9 trophies in 3 years. For a Rangers and a Celtic manager, winning 1 trophy in 9 years normally doesn't keep you in a job.
But is that coming from a fair position, though, given the fact that the erosion of Rangers, irrespective of whether it was their fault or not?
So I'm saying it goes back beyond Michael Beale.
But you think there is a gap, but it's not that big a gap.
Hang on, if you win the league, Graham, surely you should kick on. So what I'm saying is, you've climbed that mountain, you've crossed the Rubicon, you've won the league after all this time. Right? So you're in build mode again. You've re-established yourself.
I don't know the numbers. I don't know the numbers, but my understanding is that Michael Beale had money to spend, and that money wasn't spent wisely. And the most important thing you hear me say every week when I'm with you, the most important thing at a football club is getting your recruitment right. They didn't. Whatever money they had, they appeared to have blown it.